EU's diplomat Kaja Kallas says the United States holds the power to push Russia into serious negotiations. India's foreign ministry welcomed the talks, saying the world wants an early end to the war. Meanwhile, President Zelensky stressed that territorial issues can only be decided by Ukraine. He warned that peace must be real, not just a pause in Russian assaults, and urged stronger security guarantees from both Europe and the United States. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has said that President Trump has embraced Italy's idea of NATO-style security guarantees for Ukraine. Discussions on this, she added, were among the most important outcomes of the summit. And Sweden's foreign minister reaffirmed military and political support for Ukraine while calling for more pressure on Russia to bring lasting peace. For this discussion, we are joined by Peter Corrillo. He's a chief market economist at Spartan Capital Securities. Joins us live from New York. Thank you, Peter, for joining us today. Good to see you. Now, what impact could NATO-style security guarantees for Ukraine have on this broader geopolitical landscape?
Well, I think, Zelensky made it quite clear that he's not willing to give up any territory, but at the end, I think he probably will have to. And, I think that it's going to basically be his call at this time. And politically, that could have some ramifications for Western Europe. The whole aim of Western Europe is to try to have a peace deal without Putin keeping any territory. And so it's a very delicate situation, but at the same time, Russia is in desperate need to stop this war. Their economy is basically in shambles. And so I think it's safe to say that that cosmetic meeting that we saw yesterday went well, in the sense that we saw two individuals that seemed to be good friends. And so if that's truly the case, then I think it's a question of convincing Zelensky, and then perhaps an end to the war can come without a ceasefire.
And do you think these guarantees could escalate tensions with Russia further or de-escalate?
I don't really know. I'm not a political analyst, but I would kind of think that if the showcase that we saw between Trump and Putin is for real, then I don't see that happening. I think that Trump is likely to convince Zelensky, but more so convince Putin. So he probably will want to gain some of the access of the occupied territories that they won, but not all of them. And I think that's where probably Trump is probably going to be successful in ending the war.
And given this EU's firm stance that Russia cannot dictate Ukraine's NATO or EU path, how is Ukraine or EU preparing for potential Russian retaliation? What do you think?
Well, that's very true what the EU says, but all we have to do is look at the UN. Since its creation, there have been many times where the UN has said, stop any war, and I'm not referring just to one, but many wars. And it took months, and nations just ignored it. And so I kind of think that that's the same thing here with NATO. NATO can continue to be vocal, but by the same token, it just really has no staying power. And of course, let's face it, the U.S. is, you might say, the leader in NATO. So if that's the case, then it becomes even more difficult for countries to not have to hear what other countries are saying or doing, or, for that matter of fact, threaten.
And Peter, what do you think, what concrete outcomes would Ukraine hope for when President Zelensky visits President Trump next week on Monday?
I would kind of think that I don't think it's going to happen on Monday. It'll probably go back and forth for a while, but I think it will happen. And I think Zelensky, the best thing he can hope for is that he gets a peace deal without having to give up too much of the territories.
Thank you very much, Peter Cordillo, for always joining us and sharing your insight all the way from US. Now we move on